Part 34. Arcane Age. Author, Yulin Dudu. Chapter 336. Congratulations, you started the Zodiac challenge and started to challenge your question bank randomly. 8 1 greater than or equal to text greater than or equal to less than or equal to less than or equal to less than or equal to drop. Select the math question bank. Just answer the 12 math questions, you can leave the maze. The first question: the two right-angled sides of a right-angled triangle are 3 and 4 long, respectively, so what is the length of the beveled edge? Green Dragon Girl Elia was caught in meditation. The right side lengths are 3 and 4, so what is the length of the bevel? After a moment, Ilya gripped her right hand and I knew how to forget it. Her right index finger changed into a sharp blade, and a straight line with 3 scales was drawn on the maze's rocky ground. A straight angle was measured with the gaze, and a straight line segment of 4 strokes was drawn, and then the other ends of the 2 segments were connected. The truth is invisible in front of the great 6th order change mage, Elia. She easily judged the length of this hypotenuse. The answer is 5. Ilya stood up straight, arms hugged on the flat chest, snorted, her head slightly to the left, then stretched out 5 thin, delicate fingers and gently shook, proudly said, "No, I am so disappointed that the answer is 5. At this moment, Ziwei and Natalia are taking a bath in the steaming luxury bathroom of Violetberg, and in front of them there is a scene in the labyrinth of the ectopic face. Seeing this scene, 11 Wei screamed and laughed. Congratulations, you are right. The second question: 1 add 2 add 3 plus, add 99 add 100, what is the total? Ilya is very excited inside. Don't underestimate my IQ, I am also a high-level magician. The soul has jumped several times, the genius girl with high intelligence. 1 add 2 equal 3, 3 add 3 equal 6, 6 add 4 equal 10, 495 add 100 equal 5050, the answer is 5050. It took a minute to figure out the answer, and Ilya smiled. Sorry, I have already figured it out, the answer is 5050. Ziwei's mouth was once again smashed. Ah! Isn't that the case? Natalia apparently noticed the expression of Ziwei, curiously asked, I think she is very fast. Ziwei comfortably touched Natalia's head. If you are interested, you can learn the textbook of the Violet Academy, Basic Mathematics. Natalia's eyes are round and round. What do you mean by this? I feel like I am being insulted. No, Basic Mathematics is right. I have to learn from today. The challenge in the maze has gone to the third question. A businessman has a 40-pound weight, broken into 4 pieces due to falling to the ground. Later, the weight of each piece is said to be a whole pound, and you can use these 4 pieces to weigh any integer pounds between 1 and 40 pounds. How many weights are these 4 weights? Ilya is a face lifting. What is this problem? Isn't that breaking the weight? If you use the repair to fix the weight, can you use it later? Even if you don't have a businessman who can't spell it, you can't just throw it away. Is this still a waste? But it is clear that Ilya's voice did not get a response. She could only helplessly use her fingers as a pen, take the floor as a paper, and began to calculate. When this calculus used a whole magic, Ilya finally got the answer. The weight of the 4 pieces is 1, 3, 9, 27. This time, Ilya was finally not so eager, and her current math problem seemed to be more difficult. Soon, Ilya's hunch became a reality, and the 4th question appeared. In a city called Königsberg, there are 7 bridges connecting 2 islands and islands in the river to the river bank. Asked if it may be from any of the 4 blocks, just 1 pass per bridge, and back to the starting point. A map of the 7 bridges is attached below. Ilya tried to paint on it, but she used all the methods and could not do this. Time has passed 2 magic times. Ilya finally couldn't stand it. She shouted, "No." This time, after a moment of mechanical sound, I replied, "Congratulations, you are right, but you must attach the certification process." Ilya is completely mad, she will not prove it. Ilya finally tried helplessly and wanted to see what else was below. Many questions, Ilya, are not easy to read, and they can read the questions, and she has no way to start. For example, this way, prove that when the integer n2, the equation x caret n plus y caret n equals z caret n for x, y, z has no positive integer solution. For example, can you use mathematics to prove that each map only needs 4 colors to ensure that each neighbor is different? In the end, Ilya had a sorrow of the negative dog. She had completely lost the idea of getting out of the maze by cracking the puzzle, sitting quietly on the ground, waiting for the end of the labyrinth. Ilya's experience was not known to outsiders, but Natalia saw that the scene was very cool and there were some ridges. Do your magicians study these things every day? Most magicians don't need it, Zaiwei indulged for a moment, but to be a great arcane master, these are just the foundation. Fortunately, I did not choose to become a magician, otherwise I am afraid that there is no hope in this life. Natalia apparently gave a fear to the profession of the magician. In fact, the magician has been promoted in grades, and the intelligence level has been greatly improved. Such as computing power, memory ability, and thinking ability, these are very important capabilities for researchers. Therefore, the magician naturally has the basis of becoming a researcher, and the arcane master is the profession that is exhibited on this basis. Gradually interpret all unspeakable and unspeakable performances that belong to the ideal sphere into known theory and knowledge. Can progress through learning, rather than simply relying on natural spiritual power, magic affinity, and other conditions to determine the future. The upper limit of achievement. The arcanist is a career that creates everything possible. The first day of the apprenticeship spell contest is undoubtedly a wonderful show for the new students. Even now they are in the magic apprentice stage, they have been able to display so many powerful and practical spells. All kinds of strong zero-loop spells are constantly being opened by mentors and trainees, although most of them are not practical, but these strong zero-ring spells condense the wisdom of the teachers and students of the Violet Academy. And there is no shortage of gravitational wind in the hands of Esmeralda to show a different style of fine spells. All apprentices have a great interest in the second day of the apprenticeship counter contest. This is the 32-strong competition for the top 16 and the first round of seed players must enter the game. However, the voice of the genius girl Esmeralda is still very high, she won a large number of die-hard supporters with the outstanding performance in the opener. To be continued. Arcane Age. Author, Yulin Dudu. Chapter 338. Zaiwei went on to say, I saw the battle between you yesterday. The Change Wizard can actually fight like a warrior. This really makes me open my eyes. Ilya, who had already planned to leave, slowly sat back in the seat. Most change mages use various change spells to enhance their body and thus defeat the enemy in this way. For me, relative secretly put a few spells in a dark place, and face the enemy more in line with my taste. While talking, Ilya also despised Zaiwei's eyes, and it was clear that she was very resentful to Zaiwei yesterday. But she does not blindly challenge an unknown enemy, especially before she can't break the maze. Young people will have to go and see more and grow their knowledge and experience. This kind of harvest is much better than staying in the master tower to study spells. Mr. Westway, you don't seem to be big. Ilya sat up straight. In fact, I am planning a long expedition and travel. Violet is the first stop in my plan. Where are you going? Natalia interrupted. The Holy Norman Empire. I have been to the main powers of the Orient continent. This time I want to see the mysterious sea, and the scenery of all kinds of multifacets. In the eyes of Ilya flashed the light of anticipation. Natalia smiled slightly. On the island of Violet, there is a transmission array leading to the magical deep sea plane. Zaiwei has the space inheritance of the second Logrodic, and will certainly be able to develop more in the future. Multidimensional plane. Natalia's words were discussed with Zaiwei, and she is now talking about some of the things that Ziwei is not convenient to boast about. If you want to recruit the daughter of the Lord of Change, a promising green dragon girl, and a 6-ring high-level change mage, then the Ziwei and Violet Academy must show their unique advantages. Oh, Ilya asked with some suspicion, really? It's true, Ziwei smiled and replied, I can send you to the deep sea plane for an adventure and tour now. How? That's great. I didn't expect to start the second stop I was looking forward to. Ilya jumped up happily. The 50-year-old half-dragon girl has just entered the juvenile period from her infancy, and at this moment she is finally dominated by the child's nature. So Ziwei launched a transmission array leading to the deep sea plane, and sent Natalia and the passenger Elia, as guides, to the deep sea plane, hoping that Natalia would seize this rare opportunity. Ilya was given to stay in the Violet Academy. When the apprenticeship counter contest is carried out to the next day, it is much more exciting than the first day. The strength of both sides of the game is almost the same. The game is thrilling and exciting, with reversal and excitement. However, in the 16 matchups, there are still 3 scenes in the crushing situation. The winner has reached the peak of the Magic Apprentice, 20 standard magical gaze and Fernandez, and 1 is a genius girl. Esmeralda. It can be said that the 3 are already the biggest favorites in this competition. But the popularity and support rate of Gas and Fernandez is not equal to half of Esmeralda. Esmeralda has become a college idol with the wonderful performance of this competition. On the third day, 16 into 8, the 3 easily re-educated, and the fourth day of the 8th into the 4th. So on the 5th and final day of the apprenticeship spell contest, the final semi-finals and finals were finally ushered in. Only the last 4 games will determine the final third and third place. The first champion's reward is only 100 points of the arcane point. Although the other mysterious rewards have not been announced yet, they will be very rich, but the 4th place's arcane point reward is only 20 points. The semi-final match situation, the first game against Eaton and the second Fernandez against Esmeralda. Eaton and Freya were sent to the tower's apprentices. He was a businessman's child. Although the zero-base startup was also very fast, he now has 19 standard magical powers. Distance. The 2 hosts, Jude and Nightingale, cooperate very well. The audience has been elated and enthusiastic during the entire apprenticeship contest. In the final semi-final and final day, the entire arena has become a joy. Ocean. In the face of Eaton, Gas finally came up with his own secret weapon, which is to use the arcane missile spell that Ziwei exchanged in his old time to give him the arcane point. A ring of arcane missiles spells is the most practical combat spell even in a ring of spells. Even though Eaton is exhausted, Eaton can't resist it, but he can't help but lose. Gaith easily defeated the semi-final opponents, and although the audience even supported Esmeralda, but from the rational analysis, the Gus who can cast the arcane missile spell obviously has a greater probability of winning the championship. Soon, in the second semi-final, the battle between Esmeralda and Fernandez began. In the face of the prosperous Esmeralda, Fernandez is very cautious. He became a high-level middle-level magic apprentice. Before he was still in Westville, he has been a librarian and now a librarian of the Violet Academy. He finally grew to formal the relationship before the magician. He is very knowledgeable, and almost all of the catalogs of the Violet Academy have been seen. His accumulation is also very deep. The spells used in each of the previous 3 battles are different. Every fight in Esmeralda, Fernandez has carefully watched. The gravitational wind, originally a somewhat ribbed spell in her hands, became a big killer that no one can resist. Fernandez himself also analyzed the gravitational wind. When he used it himself, he could only let the other body's body shake and lose balance, but it was impossible to make people out of the game as easily as Esmeralda. Therefore, while Fernandez was puzzled, he also did a good job of protecting himself. In the first time of the war, he blessed the weak resistance improvement against the wind element. Being able to enter the semi-finals has exceeded the bottom limit of Esmeralda's psychological expectations, and now every victory is progress. Esmeralda does not hesitate to use his own killer. She sang the strong zero-ring spell of enhanced frozen rays, and she has already added a weak resistance boost to the water element. In fact, in order to target the two very powerful strong zero-ring spells of Beep and enhanced frozen rays, almost all magic apprentices will choose weak resistance enhancement for water elements. Fernandez did not hesitate to use Ice Mirror. This spell has become the trump card against enhanced frozen rays. Esmeralda finally completed the enhanced frozen ray spell, and the two cold light rushed straight out of Esmeralda and went straight to Fernandez. Fernandez steered the ice mirror and adjusted the angle to try to reflect the attack to the other party. However, under the gaze of all the audience, the two cold light that Esmeralda issued was enhanced frozen rays disappeared. To be continued. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Arcane Age. Author, Yulin Dudu. Chapter 339. What happened? Some apprentices licked their eyes and couldn't believe what they saw. Hey, Yang frowned, what is this? However, it didn't leave much thinking time for everyone. In a flash, the two cold lights disappeared behind the ice mirror and directly hit Fernandez, who had no time to escape. Esmeralda has condensed 6 standard magical powers in this enhanced frozen ray. It is already the upper limit that she can perfectly manipulate now. This unexpected attack is directly meritorious, and Fernandez's body instantly becomes stiff. It was cold, his mouth began to tremble, and he couldn't make a sound. A single blow, Esmeralda did not hesitate, followed by a gravitational wind, easily bypassing the lost manipulation of the ice mirror, throwing Fernandez out of the throne. The second semi-final was also the result of a win-win between the electric and the flint, and Esmeralda advanced to the final. However, there was no cheers and applause on the field. Almost everyone was stunned or whispered. They didn't know what happened just now. Ziwei is not here at this moment, he will only be present in the afternoon finals and the final awards ceremony. However, if he can see this scene, he will be happy for his fifth apostle. Esmeralda has begun to take off the shackles of blind witches and transform them into their own unique help. These two enhanced frozen rays are a characteristic produced by Esmeralda through the void view idea, the unique mural idea of the space mage that Grodic inherits, allowing energy to temporarily pass through space, thus crossing the obstacles. This process seems simple, but it belongs to Esmeralda's own creativity, which embodies her thinking and sweat, and represents her creativity. Yang felt the fluctuation of the space at that moment, but because the distance was too far, it was impossible to verify exactly. Professor Morris and Professor Zero, who are sitting in the VIP seats, smile and look at each other. They can naturally see that this is the application of space spells. Only as a blind witch, I have experienced Esmeralda from the magical erosion of other multifacets since I was a child, and only Esmeralda, who has gained the empty view of the Grodic space, can only use magic. The apprenticeship shows this magical spell. This can already be attributed to a spell casting feat, similar to instant cast, quick cast, and extreme cast. The audience was expecting the mid-final of the colorful semi-finals to be so easily won, which many people did not expect. If Gaith uses a ring of spells arcane missiles to make it hard to understand, then the spells that Esmeralda suddenly disappears and then suddenly appear are unintelligible. Many people are also looking forward to having a professor explain in the future, perhaps they can master this skill, but they greatly underestimate the difficulty of this skill. Many people may not have the opportunity to achieve this harsh condition. The 3 or 4 competitions and the finals can't be started right away, because the participants still need to restore their magic and adjust the state to the best, so the audience can only be scattered. The focus of almost everyone's discussion is concentrated in the second game. In the semi-final, the spells that have disappeared strangely have a greater expectation for the upcoming finals. In the players' lounge, MRS Winschell sent a small magic recovery agent to the 4 contestants, enough for the 4 children in the magic apprenticeship to restore the magic to the maximum. All 4 were silent and fully prepared for the final battle. In the afternoon, the first 3 or 4 competitions began. Fernandez finally defeated Eaton after a hard fight and won the 3rd place in this apprenticeship counter contest. It also earned him an honor. Finally, in the eyes of everyone, the finals will finally be staged. What excites the students is that the president of Violet Academy, 11 Wei, also appeared in the big arena. He will personally award the champion of this apprenticeship spell contest. The 2 players on the final stage are Guise and Esmeralda. The Nightingale shouted excitedly, "Gaith is the first apprentice of the Violet Academy. His accumulation is very deep. It is now magic. The peak of the apprenticeship can be a formal magician as long as the promotion ceremony is completed. And Esmeralda is our dear genius girl. She has only become a teacher for more than 2 months after she started learning magic." The high-level magic apprentices went all the way to the finals. Who is the winner of this apprenticeship fight against the competition? Let's start cheering for the players we support. Jude raised his left hand high and cheered the audience. I announced that the final of the 4th apprentice spell contest will officially begin, the 2 hosts shouted in unison. Gas has always regarded Fernandez as his biggest enemy, but did not expect that Esmeralda stood in front of himself. Only the final step from the championship, Gas is still very careful. He added a weak resistance improvement to the water element. For Esmeralda's ace spell Gravitational Wind, he already has a way to crack. The Gas player chose the weak resistance boost that corresponds to the water element. I don't know how to deal with the Gravitational Wind of Esmeralda's players. Esmeralda actually used the Gravitational Wind directly, and the blue whirlwind was pushed out from Esmeralda's hands, and it was blown to Guise. Gaith did not attack directly. He did not hesitate to sing the prepared spells. The whole body flashed a layer of cocky light, and the whole body sank and became a half-baked form. The blue whirlwind blew to Gaith's body, but it didn't blow people directly like before. Gaith just shook his body slightly, but still stood firmly on the ground. This is what Gaith's own research on earth elemental spells, created under the guidance of Yang's strong zero-ring spells, stands up. The spell model constructed by the earth element is closely connected to the earth, making the whole body calm. This spell sacrifices mobility, but it also completely defeats Esmeralda's gravitational wind. Gaith turned into a fort and began to sing arcane missile spells without hesitation. The arcane missiles is a terrible spell in the apprentice spell contest. The apprentices can't stop it, and they can hardly dodge. Everyone is watching the battle nervously. How does Esmeralda resolve the attacks of Gas? If Esmeralda has no way to resist the arcane missiles, then Gas will win the championship without any suspense. To be continued. Arcane Age. Author, Yulin Dudu. Chapter 340. This spell was created by Gas himself. Ziwei saw the previous scene and smiled and asked Yang, who was sitting next to him. Creativity is his own, and the basic spell model is also built by himself. He came to me to help me improve it and make the spell more feasible and practical, Yang explained, but this is 7 days ago. This apprenticeship, what happened before the competition? 11 Wei nodded lightly. In fact, both of them reached a close relationship with him. Gaith was the best friend of the original Youngsiv before he came to the world, and Esmeralda was his 5th apostle, a blind witch with enough magical talent. Siwei guessed the speed of progress of Esmeralda, but did not expect that Esmeralda had a very high creativity and talent in the use of spells. She fully exerted her own advantages before she could play in the game. Overcome the strong enemy and walk to the final table. Under the attention of everyone, Esmeralda did not try to avoid or resist this bright silver arcane missile, but instead greeted it and used his eyebrows to pick up this arcane missile. For most people, once you hit the brain with an arcane missile, it is very likely to kill you directly. In the exclamation of countless people, 11 Wei's eyes shined with the light of appreciation. It was a bright child. Esmeralda's eyebrows are where her multifaceted magic gathers. These messy magics have caused her a lot of trouble, but at this moment it has become a help to him. Enemy help. Although at the last moment, the unbearable Gus manipulated the orbit of the arcane missile, Esmeralda resolutely greeted the arcane missile with his eyebrows. Many timid audiences have closed their eyes. Dare to look directly at the next tragedy. However, this arcane missile only stayed in front of Esmeralda's eyebrows. The messy magic interfered with the advancement of the arcane missile. Eventually, this magical power merged into the messy magic of Esmeralda's own body. Among them, Gaith knew that he was in big trouble. Esmeralda's performance has far exceeded the possibility of a normal magic apprentice, which means that the other party is probably not a normal person. But Gas' efforts for such a long time are for this moment, and he will never give up. Under the effect of standing and not falling spells, his incarnation cannot move, can only continue to display the next arcane missile. This time he aimed the arcane missiles at the waist of Esmeralda, avoiding the other's eyebrows. However, Esmeralda also began to sing the spell. Her pale eyes suddenly opened, and the eyes without pupils shimmered. The messy magic in her eyebrows was lightly enchanted by her space with the empty view. Lightly launched, turned into a multicolored magic ray. This magical ray is full of cluttered magic, cancelling each other's interference, but even so, this magical ray is similar to the two-ring spell. Gas's arcane missiles were easily annihilated by colorful magic rays, and he could only helplessly watch this magical ray hit him. In the last lesson, he felt that his body suddenly became light, and then he took a closer look and stood outside the platform. Ziwei stood up. This battle, Esmeralda won. The displacement of Gas was just his manipulation. Everyone's eyes were on the body of Ziwei, and there was no cheer. Obviously everyone could not understand the spells that Esmeralda had performed beyond the apprenticeship. Esmeralda is my recommendation to join the Violet Academy. The first sentence of Ziwei made the audience feel awkward. It turned out that this genius girl actually knew the president of Ziwei. She is a witch. She was born with a very large magical power. But this magic is not entirely wealth, but also a huge burden and torture. Because of the erosion of the magic, her young body is very thin. On the verge of life and death. But she has such a beautiful soul. She not only survived tough, but also full of yearning for life, full of expectations for the future. This magic is a burden to her, but also a grain, so after she started the formal magic study, she was able to display spells that surpassed the power of magic apprentices. Ziwei looked around and all the audience's eyes were in focus. On the body, he said forcefully, the world of Orient is not a fair world. It is a prince and a nobleman when you are born. It is a calf and an orphan when you are born. Some people can learn magic from an early age. Some people can only beg along the street. Some people are strong, and they are weak and sick. Some are handsome and beautiful, some are ugly. The origin almost determines the achievements and possibilities of most people in life, but magic is the only exception. Sire Wan sings. His voice echoes in everyone's ears, stirring their hearts and inspiring their fighting spirit. Although some people have great advantages in terms of various factors such as magic affinity and spiritual strength, this advantage is only temporary, but basic. It determines the starting point, but it cannot determine the end point. It determines your progress. Speed, but can't decide the distance to go. It is magic, so that an ordinary person can have a bright and brilliant future. It is learning, so that we can surpass those who are born better than us. Our struggle and efforts can change this unfairness, makes our life better. Let our future be brighter. Ziwei's temporary speech finally came to an end. Let us give warm applause to Esmeralda, our champion. Ziwei's right hand gently swelled, and an invisible wind gently lifted Esmeralda. Her long hair fluttered gently in the wind, and the clothes were drawn with the wind. The intellectual beauty is so fascinating. After a moment of silence, the audience began to cheer in unison, Esmeralda. Champion glory. At this moment, they not only admire and appreciate this beautiful girl, but also have a pity and care. In the cheers of the audience, under the gaze of everyone's concern, Esmeralda smiled happily, and the hot tears fell from her eyes. This is the tear of happiness, the tear of joy. In the cheers of the audience, Ziwei turned around and suddenly there was a quietly standing silver-haired woman in the blank space behind her. She smiled and applauded, a very inspiring speech, President Ziwei. 11 Wei smiled and stretched out his arms and went forward, welcome to your return, Professor Christine. To be continued. Arcane Age. Author, Yulin Dudu. Chapter 341. Ziwei and Christine gently hugged, and the two separated again. Ziwei carefully looked at the silver-haired beauty in front of him. You let me wait for too long, Professor Christine, I have a great idea, need and you share it. Oh? Is it? Christine gently licked the hair in her ear, I haven't explained it yet, you defaulted to me as your professor. Don't forget that we signed the Styx contract, 11 Wei said in the ear of Kristen whispered, you have a part of the Violet Academy. The scene that happened on the rostrum did not escape the eyes of everyone. I don't know when the cheers had stopped. Everyone was watching the silver-haired beauty who had a cordial conversation with President Ziwei. It's really beautiful, and it's even more beautiful than the still young Esmeralda, almost on the same level as Charlotte's mentor. It's already beyond the normal human range. Ziwei confirmed to Christine, and Christine nodded lightly. 11 Wei said to the students of the audience, let us welcome the new professor of the Violet Academy, the 6th Order high-level magician, Professor Christine, who will bring you a new style of magical school course. The applause of the audience was thunderous. This beautiful big beauty turned out to be the new professor of the college, a high-level magician who built the school. In this way, the Violet Academy has already been a professor of Ziwei, Maurice, Zero, and Kristen's 4 high-level magicians. Even in the Kingdom of France, there are few magic schools that can have 4 high-level magicians as professors. Next, I will award the top 3 in the 4th apprentice spell contest. Westway waved a hand, and the breeze sent Esmeralda directly to the highest position on the podium, while Gas and Fernandez has already stood in the runner-up and 3rd place position. Charlotte, a red-hot robe, gracefully walked up in the red high heels, holding a silver plate on her hand. It was the medal of the top 3 in this competition, 3 gold, silver, and bronze, all engraved with violet. Signet. 11 Wei put the bronze medal on Fernandez's neck and shook hands with him. The rewards for the 3rd place are 40 arcane points, an arcane crystal, and an optional ring spell. Jude Lang said the reward for the season. This reward is undoubtedly very rich, so that no mathematicians are very excited. Ziwei put a silver medal on Guy's neck. In such a short time, Gaith had already emerged from the final defeat. He smiled and shook hands with Ziwei. The rewards for the runner-up are 60 arcane points, 2 arcane crystals, 2 optional ring spells, and an additional magic time for Vice-Chancellor Yang. As the Vice President of Violet College, Yang is responsible for a lot of daily management and teaching work, and has not given up on the study of magic, so he is very busy, and the time for answering a magic time is also very precious. Finally, Ziwei put the gold medal on the neck of the champion Esmeralda. You performed very well. Esmeralda smiled sweetly, thank you for the appreciation of Ziwei tutor. The rewards for this competition are 100 arcane points, 3 arcane crystals, 3 optional ring spells, and an additional magic time for Principal Ziwei. When deciding on the championship prize, Ziwei did not guess that Esmeralda won the final championship. Esmela, as the 5th apostle of Ziwei, if he came to ask Ziwei, he would definitely take the time to answer. But this reward will undoubtedly make the mathematician blind, because the president of Ziwei has rarely lectured for the students of the Violet Academy. The Violin Academy's fourth apprentice spell contest ended in perfection. This event has become a traditional event of the Violet Academy and will be held every 6 months. With the increasing number of magicians at the Violet Academy, the competition at the level of the magician has begun to be planned. After the contest, Ziwei took Christine directly to the underground secret room of the tower, where the Western spell list is located. Delivering a professor's exclusive nameplate that had just been produced to Christine, Christine took over and mentally sank into the violet emblem, and began his first experience with Ziwei's spell list. As a 6-ring high-level magician, Christine employs up to 10,000 arcane points, and her monthly salary is as high as 1,000 arcane points, which is a very generous reward. After 5 months of studying at the Zhai Tower, Christine's accomplishments in construction have improved a lot. She is keenly aware of the uniqueness and excellence of the Western Warcraft list. This is undoubtedly a very clever, intelligent machine, different from the construction of the Empress Didela's construction heritage, another magical creation of completely different ideas. This is originally the application of magic in the 35th century AD. The collision of two different civilizations is the most expectation of Ziwei's exchange with Christine, the spark of inspiration, and the key to the silver spell list to be improved again. After carefully observing all the functions of Western Way's spell list, including redemption, spell simulation, mission system, etc., Christine finally extracted the mental power from the violet emblem. She suddenly raised a question. I remember you have an elemental magic book. 11 Wei took out the elemental magic book from Descartes, a purple book with a bronze pattern, whose core is entirely composed of ether and 4 basic elements. And Christine also took out a thick book from the space ring. Except for the color and the title on the cover, the other patterns and designs are exactly the same. Looking at the 4 characters functional magic book above, Ziwei seems to have grasped a key point. Where does this book come from? It is the great 7th law, the master of the Tower of the High Definition, the gift of the Emperor Didela. This book is her magic book used in the stage of high-level magicians and magic masters. Christine stared at 11 Wei's face and wanted to see if he would react. It turns out that Dikla, written in Descartes' elemental magic book, is really the great 7th law Didura. This is really an unexpected surprise. Christine saw the excitement of Ziwei. She smiled and said, "Take your blessing, I also got the special appreciation of Didela and this magic book. This is an unexpected joy. So Professor Kristen, will you still exchange spells with us and learn and progress together?" Ziwei said with a smile. "Of course, President Ziwei," Christine smiled. "I believe that communication with you will make me go more smoothly on the road to becoming a master of magic in architecture." To be continued. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Arcane Age. Author, Yulin Dudu. Chapter 342. There was another tacit understanding between Ziwei and Kristen because of the story that happened between Descartes and Dela, which made them more intimate and at the same time had a mutual trust. This trust is very important. Only a completely open communication can make the brainstorm more intense and the spark of thinking more beautiful. For the core structure of Western Way's spell list, Ziwei has unreserved disclosure, and for the construction of the spell inheritance, Christine does not hide. In the process of mutual learning between the two, for the construction of spells and the understanding of intelligent machinery has become more in-depth. This is really a genius. Christine patted Civi's shoulder. You have opened a new door for the construction of the spell. If you take this smart machine to the face of Didela, she will definitely accept you as a disciple without hesitation. Her face was a little flushed. Because of her excitement, during the communication between the two, she discovered too many fresh knowledge and ideas that are completely different from the heritage of the decoration. These seemingly strange knowledge and ideas are systematic, and not a fantasy. The silver spell list in front of it is evidence. In fact, this is not my own merit. Professor Zero has done a lot of work in this process. Ziwei's right hand gently lifted it and Zero jumped out of his body. Between you, Christine curiously looked at Zero, is it a magic pet contract? No, it's a deeper soul. Ziwei smiled and let him climb up his shoulders, a closer partnership than you think. Christine took out the canned food. This is the smart machine I created myself as a magician. It is the magician of an ordinary magician. It is called a small can. The small cans gently waved at Ziwei. Hello, hey, handsome, are you pursuing my master? I feel the heart of the master is beating. The little can voice just fell, and Christine was ashamed and angry and shot directly on its head. The small can only turned his eyes to the Zero on the shoulder of Ziwei. Hey, beautiful, you are so beautiful. Zero directly ignores the small can of poor mouth, squinting like a sleeping look motionless. No way, my tutor is such a funny person. In the stage of the intelligent organization of small cans, his influence is very big, Christine shrugged. In fact, I am very interested in how the spells of the architecture school give me mechanical intelligence. This is likely to help Zero recovery smart modules that are still in a state of damage. There is a secret known to everyone inside the architecture school, that is, the earliest source of all intelligent machinery comes from a miraculous creation. It is called primitive fire type. According to the research of Didala's research, this original fire type from other crystal walls outside the world of Orient. The earliest construction spells flowed out of the original fires. The original Dagola had a period of original fire, from which a large number of rules for constructing spells were resolved, and thus successfully promoted to become famous. The seventh act, the first female legendary magician among humans, Christine spoke of the biggest secret inside the architecture school. At time, Ziwei raised the question, so what happened to the original fire? It has been silenced 30 years ago, Christine said regretfully. The original fire has been damaged and consumed most of the energy in the process of crossing the wall of the universe, although Dikla has tried every means to extend the original fire life, but ultimately it is due to silence. In the exchange with Christine, Ziwei has discovered that the construction of the spell school is another unique mechanical development path, and the entire construction school actually developed from such a primitive fire. Do you have any thoughts on the improvement of the silver spell list? Ziwei still put the problem in place. Your machine was developed on the basis of the relatively primitive tailing 100 years ago, so it is very backward. So for me, there are more than 10 ways to improve the effectiveness of this intelligent machine. But most I have a lot of core parts that I can't understand. I need your support and cooperation, Christine said with a smile. At this point, Professor Zero is professional. 11 Wei gently followed the Zero hair, stood up, purple pupil staring at Christine, nodded lightly, and squeezed a kind smile. It's really a delicate face. Christine smiled very happy. I like you very much, Miss Zero. I am the same, Miss Christine, Zero elegantly responded. Originally in the eyes of Zero, in addition to the soul of the West, other people are just a string of useless numbers. But now Zero has gradually got rid of the status of the intelligent core, and evolved towards a truly sound life and people. This change is the result of Ziwei's decisive disconnection between the soul and the Zero. Ziwei is happy with this change. He wants a soul partner who is truly a life and death, not a cold person. A blunt golden finger. Although I have already had my own Violet Academy in the world of Orient, I have a girlfriend and a large number of students and friends, but Zero still has a unique position in the heart of Ziwei. They have been together for the past 30 years, and they have no concealment between each other. I am also the same beautiful Miss Zero, shouted a small can. The improvement of Western spell list became the first work of Christine as a professor at the Violet Academy. During the week, She and Zero almost all the Kung Fu was soaked here. The Dimensions spell list has undergone a super upgrade. 11 Wei also often communicates with Zero and Kristen. In the process, 11 Wei also has a deep understanding of the spells of the school. In other words, although Zai Wei has not yet carried out the real construction school spell learning, he has mastered the general principles and ideas of the entire school. A week later, the upgraded Silver spell list debuted. Its shape has been greatly improved, and the shine of the metal looks very powerful. The volume has also expanded by nearly 10 times, almost filling the entire room. The surface of the intelligent machine has complicated patterns and inscriptions. It is these rules that are resolved from the original fire that give this intelligent machine more powerful functions. Western's spell list has been completely reborn, and its performance has changed dramatically. To be continued. Arcane Age. Author, Yulin Dudu. Chapter 343. The original Western-style spell list is like the old ox pulls the car, although after several improvements, the load has reached the limit. With the increasing number of magic apprentices and magicians accessing the Western Ways spell list, they not only learn and practice spells here, but also complete various tasks, so the Western Warcraft list load capacity puts very high demands on it. On the other hand, the spells that Western spell list can carry are also limited. With the newer levels of spells being developed by Zai Wei, the spell models are becoming more and more complex. These 6-ring and 7-ring spells have a very high load on the Western-style spell list and can be said to be completely overwhelmed. However, after the transformation of the 6-ring assembly mage Christine, who had just completed the post-study at the Zhai Tower, and received the personal guidance of the Front Emperor Didula, this intelligent machine re-emerged. If the Western-style spell list is called a central processing unit, the load on this processor has been greatly improved, and at least 7-ring spells are no longer difficult. Moreover, the number of terminals that can be accessed is also greatly increased, and it can now accommodate 3,000 people. In the process, Zai Wei and Kristen collided with many new inspirations, and they can continue to update and improve the Western Ways spell list. The many functions in the Zai Wei vision can also be added step by step. This is a virtuous circle. In this process, Zai Wei and Zero learned a lot about the construction school. In just 7 days, all the spells below the 3 rings of the school have been completely mastered by Zai Wei and Zero. The most basic spell of the struck school is a zero-loop spell, Metal Reinforcement. This spell temporarily increases the hardness or sharpness of a piece of metal, mainly on weapons. The upgraded version of this spell is a 3-ring spell Metal Manipulation that can easily change the shape, hardness, and properties of a piece of metal. Many of these basic constructive spells and Zero's own abilities have a synergistic effect, but the energy used is magic, and it is necessary to construct a spell model to display. The spelling of the spells has a unique style that is different from other spell schools, such as the elemental school, and is a crystallization of the wisdom of the original fire. Before becoming a master of magic, the combat power of a costume mage itself can be said to be very weak, especially when there is no companionship of the construction machinery. That's why, when fighting on the seabed, most of Christ's spells come from other schools. But a truly powerful wizard can manipulate a large number of construction machines and even form a military of their own to fight. The reason why the 7th Law Didela is called the Emperor is precisely because she can summon a whole army of construction machinery to fight for herself. Almost no one can resist the formation of a completely composed mechanical machine. Metal Torrents. To some extent, the construction wizard is an alternative summoning magician. Zero is a good thing when learning to construct a spell. She is the core of intelligence. Although these spells belong to the wisdom of the original fire, they are very simple for her. Maybe they have similar common language and thinking mode. In just 7 days, it was very crucial for Christine. She had just completed her studies at the Zhihe Tower and immediately took over such an important practical work in the process of completing the improvement of the Western Warcraft list. She also learned a lot of fresh knowledge and ideas from Ziwei and Zero also told her some unique tips and understandings, which is equivalent to her opening a closed door and seeing a new one. World. This insight is undoubtedly a valuable asset, laying a solid foundation for her achievement Master of Magic. Christine liked the Violet Fortress very much, so she was also placed in the castle by Ziwei, but her bedroom was not on the third floor, but on the second floor. After completing the upgrade of the Silver's spell list, Christine gave the students of the Violet Academy an open class for the construction school. The course was held in the grand auditorium of the college, and almost all the students in the school participated. The appearance of small cans made the audience cheer, and they all had great interest in this novel spell school. Now, whether it is the summoning spells taught by Professor Morris, or the protective school spells taught by Professor Zero or the compositional spells of Christine, the scope of the Violet Academy has been greatly enriched, and the entire college has also embarked on a high-speed development. Trail of. On this day, the bard who had been paying attention to Ziwei finally entered the Violet Castle through the introduction of Mrs. Winschell. Hello, President of Ziwei, I am Bajuan. From the French Music Association. The bard gently performed a standard etiquette action. I brought the greetings and invitations of Lord Sophie, the music master. Please sit. What invitation? May 18th is the annual Midsummer Night Music Festival. This year's Midsummer Night Music Festival will be held in Wangdupali. Lord Sophie wants to invite Mr. Ziwei to attend this festival. Duan's bard gave a small golden invitation to Ziwei. Through your movement, I heard your heart. Civi Frost, you are a great musician, the most brilliant pearl of this era. I am looking forward to your participation in this year's Midsummer Night Music Festival. Looking forward to the moment you meet. Sophie Mathilde. The writing is very delicate and bright, with a unique personal style. The surname of Mathilde is also a noble surname, which existed almost at the first time in the establishment of the French kingdom, and has a history of thousands of years. 11 Wei would like to ask about the realm of the Master of Music Sophie, but he still suppressed the impulse. I have received invitations from Victor Hugo and the Lord of Music Sophie Mathilde. Ziwei seems to have to go to Wangdupali. It is. I am also looking forward to meeting with Lord Sophie. This invitation, I will make it, Ziwei nodded. Then I will retire. President Ziwei, the poet who completed the mission, politely left the Fort Lauderdale and soon left the island of Violet by the Friendship. Then Kami went into the reception room. The president of Ziwei, the camera and the wind mobile are very practical magic creations, and they must be able to sweep the whole continent. But if they want to sell quickly, we must go to Vienna or Pili to hold a meeting. Product launch. I have a very good personal relationship with Mrs. Adele, the head of the French Chamber of Commerce of the Fortune Chamber of Commerce. I believe she will cooperate with us to jointly promote these two products. Then it will be in Wangdupali. Kamiao, you will take 100 cameras and 200 vehicles as samples to Wangdupali. Prepare for the new conference of the Violet Chamber of Commerce. I will be the development meeting will arrive before the start. Ziwei made up his mind. Arcane Age. Author, Yulin Dudu. Chapter 345. The interior of the Violet Academy has been on the right track, and the Western Wisdom list has also been upgraded. It is no longer a problem for Ziwei to leave Violet for a while. Par is the kingdom of the French kingdom, and the only 3 large cities in the whole of the Orient continent with a population of more than 1 million. The other 2 are the capital of the Holy Norman Empire, Vienna, and the main temple of the Glorious Lord, the Holy City of Vatican. As a separate force, Violet College has already embarked on the stage of the Kingdom of France, and Ziwei has also entered the vision of countless big men. This is an opportunity and a challenge. Ziwei must be fully prepared to meet all challenges in the best condition. Therefore, Ziwei has a very important thing to do before going to Wangdu Pai Li. On the hill above the plane transmission center, Ziwei quietly stood above the transmission array, and Yang and Meryl, who were all covered in the same blue and silver sacred robes, stood on his side. Ready, Ziwei confirmed to the two. Yang and Meryl solemnly nodded and closed their eyes, which was the first time they had traveled on a plane. The magic surges, and the input is in the transmission matrix. The blue light illuminates the upper layer, and the star track illuminates, and the transmission to the SMOV plane has been turned on. The figure of the three disappeared from the island of Violet and appeared in the blue big temple of the snow-capped mountains. Solomon, the chief archbishop of the temple, has been waiting for the blue gods to meet the three strangers. These three strangers are the warriors of the blue sky and the most distinguished guests. It's been 40 days since Ziwei's last trip to the Smurfs, and more than 5 months in the Smurfs. Under the guidance and teachings of the Blue God Temple, the civilization of the entire SMOV community is developing at a very fast pace, and has evolved directly from the early tribal civilization of the slave society to the centralized civilization under the rule of the temple. Although it is limited by the elemental energy and cannot continue to expand, this does not mean that Zero gives up the development of the entire SMOV plane. In the previous months, Solomon personally led several priests and priests to travel. They climbed over the mountains, crossed the river, crossed the jungle, and walked across the grass. They communicated with other SMOV tribes, they explored the mystery of this plane, and on the map provided by the magic provided by Zero, the information of the entire SMOV plane gradually improved. In the end, in the far north of the Snow Mountain Temple, Solomon discovered a huge abyss, where the terrain was deep and formed a huge depression. The locals call this a magical demon, and all those who are not interested in getting close will go crazy, the whole body festers, and eventually die in tears and mourning. However, Solomon felt that there is an endless expanse of elements, which is simply a horrible ocean. In fact, here is the mystery of the thin elements of the entire SMOV plane. And this element, Wan Yang, will also be the place where Ziwei's last deduction and empirical experiment before the elemental school spells were made. Yang and Meryl are the core confidants of Ziwei, and he is also the most proud student. This time, with two people coming to the SMOV plane, Ziwei is planning to give his own understanding and mastery of the elemental school. Observing this experiment is also a very rare opportunity for them. Zero has quietly entered the body of Ziwei, and the two have once again become one, and Ziwei is well prepared. For so long, about the ether, about the elements, Ziwei has had too much practical experience and bold speculation, and these speculations need to be verified by this experiment. The ground, fire and feng shui, the four basic elements, this is the most important part of the magic that pervades the entire multifaceted face. The three seem to slowly move toward the north along the way, but the speed at the foot is very fast. You have completed the four elements of the heart of the lake, and have been in the middle of the magician for a while. Then do you feel the existence of a unique element? It can be transformed with the four basic elements, perfect harmony. The 4-series elemental lake is fully constructed, which is a prerequisite for the production of trace amounts of etheric elements in the heart lake. I have caught it for a moment, but it soon disappeared. Meryl seems to suddenly realize, I recorded it, almost thought it was an illusion. There have been 5 such special changes in my heart lake. The originally completely different elements have been transformed into other elements through an intermediate stage. This is just an instant, it is difficult to normalize, Yang also said himself. Case. Very good, Ziwei nodded with satisfaction. In the middle magician stage, there was no help from the legendary magical object of the etheric ball. The two were able to perceive the glimpse of the inside of the heart lake. The trace of the etheric element is already very commendable. In fact, this element really exists. I named it as an ether. While Ziwei spoke, the white slender fingers stretched out from the golden blue robes and gently touched in the air in front of him. So there were 4 groups of light in front of Ziwei, yellow, red, green, and blue, which corresponded to the four elements of fire and feng shui. The white light connects the four basic elements to form a circle, and Ziwei gently clicks on the center of the circle. A group of transparent lights suddenly appeared here. Under the guidance of Ziwei, the light slowly approached the yellow light group above, and the two quickly merged into one, becoming a pure yellow, and the yellow light group was also a whole circle. The etheric elements are completely transformed into earth elements here, Ziwei said to the two proud students who stared at the changes in front of them. It can also be transformed back. As the fingers of Ziwei's fingers move gently, the yellow light clusters shrink and become smaller, as if something is about to be born. Soon, a group of colorless rays jumped out of the yellow light group and approached the white light to the red light group corresponding to the fire element. In the demonstration of Ziwei, the colorless light group belonging to the etheric element has been transformed into four basic elements and reverse transformed, and finally returned to the center of the starting point, and then faded. The etheric element is difficult to exist for a long time in the main material plane. It is already the result of my long-term research, Ziwei said calmly. This is the fifth element, ether, for the element for the master of the school. The mystery must be mastered in the future. To be continued. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Arcane Age. Author, Yulin Dudu. Chapter 346. For Meryl and Yang, who are 3-ring and 4-ring magicians, the magical scene that Ziwei demonstrated to them today undoubtedly subverts the old impressions of the original, and everything has changed greatly since then. The most primitive and basic elemental school spells must also be reborn as a result of the understanding and use of the etheric elements. The spells that the earliest magicians learned from the elves were elemental spells, when elemental spells were almost synonymous with magic. However, all of this was ended with the rise of the protection school pioneered by the first law of Tolafid. A large number of protective spells for elemental spells were developed, and a large number of very powerful elemental spells were confronted with protective spells. Lost in the middle, forced to fall from the crown of the most shining magic. It was for the protectionist spells that replaced the elemental school to crown the magic crown, and since then there have been various magical spells, change spells, summoning spells, and the rise of the fiction school. However, the mystery of the ether is tantamount to a redemption of the ancient elemental school. As in the battle of the first magical master of the Mozambique's first family, Grub, who was experienced by 11 Wei in the heroic legend of the Orient, when 11 Wei was using the elemental torrent to attack the protective spell of Grub, by temporarily transforming the four basic elements into ether, Grub's master elemental protection, a 7-ring protection spell called elemental spells, is completely ineffective. Because with the decline of the elemental school, the masters of the elements of the whole of the Orient continent are very rare, and the original and most basic elemental school, until now, has not appeared a legendary magician. Although Ziwei has already made a solid step in becoming a space magic master with the analysis of the 24 empty inscriptions on the Void Traveler Grodic space, in the future, the masters of the magic of each university will be achieved, but the elements spells have always been the best and most essential foundation of Ziwei. What Ziwei wants to do is to dig deep into the mystery of the ether, and truly carry forward the elemental school and let it regain its new life. However, the etheric element is as elusive as the smile of the goddess of fortune. It is like a naughty elf. Even if it appears occasionally on the main material plane, it will soon be transformed into four basic elements. Although there are a lot of etheric elements in the etheric sphere, as long as these elements are used and leave the ether ball, they will be transformed. On the way to the bottom of the underground magic, Ziwei told his own feelings about the etheric elements without any reservations. He did not speak to Yang and Meryl alone, but also told himself that he was beyond the elemental OI-72. Mystery. The Smurfs were not very large. After about a super fast time of magic, the three appeared in front of the underground magic. The elements here are very violent. Meryl communicated with her eyes closed and her elements. With the in-depth understanding of the 3 volumes of Elements of the Righteousness 72 and the description of Zaiwei, she has already awakened the heart of the element. It seems that the magic of the entire plane is gathering here. Yang frowned slightly. Perhaps this is why the entire plane element is so thin. Yes. The magic of the entire smooth plane is almost all gathered here, forming a huge magical abyss, elemental abyss, 4 basic elements noisy, nowhere in the wild, conflicts and collisions. This is for the elemental magician. It's also a very dangerous place, because the wild elements are beyond the control of the magician. Zaiwei opened the real magic eye, and the blue eyes like the ocean are shining with a little bit of starriness. However, for me, I want to verify a bold guess, the elemental wizard who pursues the true mystery of the ether, but it is the best. Experimental sight. The voice of Zaiwei became a bit embarrassed. You stand here and quietly observe all the changes that are about to happen. Don't try to walk into the magical field, the violent elements will cause you incurable damage. In the vision of Yang and Meryl, their mentor 11 Wei slowly approached the magical step, and the golden blue robes fell on the ground. His whole body was emitting colorful light, as if to substantial transformation into illusion. The 4 elements of Zaiwei's heart lake have already reached the extreme, and the total amount of magic has exceeded the existence of most legendary magicians. At this moment, the whole 4 elements of Zaiwei began to boil and burn. The 4 elements of the real spirits rise high above the heart of the lake, and the most intense elemental fluctuations begin to rise. This is. Meryl was shocked by the wind that suddenly became more wild, and involuntarily stepped back. Zaiwei mentor is completely elementizing his body, Yang shouted out. The 4-element heart lake completely erupted, and as a small universe generally showed the energy of horror. In this wild elemental wind, Zaiwei's body slowly dissipated and reorganized into a pure element. The whole person of Zaiwei has become a group of 5 color elements, with the elements of yellow, green, blue, and the colorless ether in the center. It is the 5 elements that Zaiwei showed to Yang and Meryl just now. Ring pattern. Although in the total amount of elements, the elemental Zaiwei is completely inferior to the whole underground magical demon, but in the concentration and order of the elements, the still conscious Zaiwei easily surpasses the wild elements of the entire underground magical sea. How to really get an insight into the mystery of ether? Must be an avatar element. This is not a slapstick adventure, but a denial of all other possibilities. The only remaining road is, although it is extremely difficult, although it is dangerous, it is the only one that can lead to victory and success. The road to hope. How is the legendary magical object of the etheric ball, the only one that can maintain the etheric element for a long time in the main material plane? It is a magic ball placed in the center of the circle, placed in the core of an arcane crystal vein. After 100 years of gathering a very high concentration of elements, was born in this very high concentration of elements an etheric element that can exist for a long time. And this underground magical demon that almost brings together all the elements of the smooth plane is a sea of elements that is far more wild than the core of the underground arcane crystal vein of violet. Completely elementalizing the body is almost something that only elemental creatures can do. The body is completely ablated, and for most people it is simply suicide. But how can you really gain insight into the mystery of the ether? Zaiwei has already done everything, and there is 0 as a backing. He is the worst and can't die. It will only be weak for a while. To be continued. Arcane Age. Author, Yulin Dudu. Chapter 347. However, the opportunity is so rare that the underground magical world that gathers a whole plane element is very rare. Although this is only a small plane, the capacity of the element in this magical field is enough for Zaiwei to complete his exploration of the mystery of the ether. An important experiment. The elemental body is so unstable that it seems to dissipate at any time under the impact of the wild elements of the outside world. Among the 5 elements of the Zai-Wei incarnation, the 4 basic elements in the center have the elements of the true spirit of the town, the earth really spirit ox, the fire of the real spirit phoenix, the Qingfen Zhenling, pure water Zhenling Haishi. This 4-element light group is created by the 4 elements of the lake, and under the influence of the 4 elements of the true spirit, slowly absorbs the corresponding basic elements in the surrounding space and slowly grows its own energy. This is a very difficult job, because in the bottom of the earth, the 4 basic elements are so disordered and wild, like a mixed valley of rice, wheat, red beans, and mung beans that will be filled with a castle. The heap is sorted out in batches, and it doesn't have any feasibility. The light group belonging to the etheric element is much smaller than the 4 basic elemental light groups, but this has been the accumulation of Zai-Wei for such a long time. In this wild elemental ocean, under the protection of the 4 basic elemental light groups, the etheric elemental light group not only did not stabilize or even grow as expected by Zai-Wei, but began to transform at a very fast speed. The process of becoming another element. In the face of this irreversible transformation, Zai-Wei did not panic. His soul was linked to the 4 elements of the true spirit. At this moment, the 4 elements of the light group were completely controlled by him. This is his energy, and it is also the element. Under the action of the heart, the perfect resonance between the ground fire and the feng shui. Outside the underground, Yang and Meryl nervously watched the changes that took place inside. Although they had very full trust in the mentor Zai-Wei, the changes made at this moment allowed them to directly point the heart to the position of the blind eyes. The 4 elements of the Zai-Wei incarnation are flashing and flashing. It seems to be beginning to become unstable. It will disappear at any time and merge into the sea of endless vast elements. However, this is not the demise of destruction, but the germination of new life. 11 Wei resolutely began the process of reversing the etheric elements by 4 elements. Just as Zai-Wei demonstrated the process of Yang and Meryl on the road, Zai-Wei has been able to transform the 4 basic elements of the ether into a single correspondence, and can also reverse the 4 basic elements to the etheric elements. Zai-Wei has already elementized the body, and the 4 elements of the light group have begun to transform towards the etheric element at the same time. The original yellow, red, green, and blue colors began to gradually fade, and the color of the true emptiness changed, as if it had become a clear shadow, disappearing from the perspective of Yang and Meryl. The conversion at the beginning was very smooth, but as the conversion progressed, more and more etheric elements were temporarily changed. These unstable ethers will soon become 4 basic elements again. Once caught in this cycle, it means that Zai-Wei's experiment to explore the mystery of ether is forced to fail. At this most critical moment, the 4 elements of the true spirit simultaneously emit a crisp or steady buzzing sound. As the elemental spirit, they directly dissipate themselves, and this most pure element is transformed into the final chaos. It is like adding a reaction-generating substance to a nuclear reactor. Under the temporary eruption of the elemental spirit, the 5 elements of the Zai-Wei, which have already completed 90% transformation, have finally merged into one. All 4 basic elements have been completely transformed into the etheric elements, and Zai-Wei has finally been transformed into pure etheric light form. Throughout the process of elementization, Zai-Wei retained the core part of the brain only under the protection of Zero, and was transferred to the astral world for Zero security. At this moment his soul has completely blended with this etheric element, and he can finally experience the mystery of the etheric spirit. The ether is not impossible to exist. The etheric element that appears in the main material plane is active, but the ether has another state, that is, the inert state. Zai-Wei manipulates the complete etheric itself and slowly shifts the elements at the core from active to inert. This part of the etheric element seems to be in silence, and Anan stays here steadily, like a crystal-less, colorless, pure sacred object. With this inert etheric elemental crystal as the carrier of its own soul, without worrying that its own soul will dissipate with these unstable etheric elements at any time. Zai can finally begin the second phase of the etheric mystery experiment. He began to use the soul to continue to manipulate the ether transformation, directly transforming the ocean of elements consisting of the four basic elements of the wild and chaotic around to the pure ether. You don't need to pick and separate, you can convert all the elements directly into ether. The etheric light group of Zai itself is getting brighter and brighter, and even the colorful elements of the ocean cannot cover this bright light, like a rising sun. That is, Yang squinted at the sudden spurt of the light. That is the Westway mentor, Merrill excitedly shouted, he completely made himself too etheric. And he is transforming the entire underground magical. This is a matter of excitement when thinking about it. The Westway mentor not only did not dissipate in the sea of wild elements, but took control of the initiative and began to transform and comb the entire underground magic circle. In the eyes of Yang and Merrill, the current dimension of Zai has gone beyond the realm of mortals, is manipulating the authority similar to the gods. Sun non-fish, and Z-fish music. Zai, who is completely incarnate in the ether, finally realized another kind of fun different from the carbon-based life form. At this moment, the whole underground magical demon has become a grain, let him take it and grow up. The inert ether is at a higher level than the active one at the energy level, and the Westville layer is a part of the energy level that can be changed to an inert state at any time to form an ether crystal. What Zai is doing now is to constantly transform the surrounding elements into ethers and refine the etheric essence from it, and condense on the etheric light group that changes itself. The outer etheric elements are transformed into four basic elements at any time, and at the same time, Zai is once again transformed into an ether, and it is caught in a calm cycle. However, in this cycle, the etheric light group of Zai's incarnation is getting brighter and brighter, and the range of illumination is getting bigger and bigger. In the end, almost the entire underground magical gorge is accommodated. It is precisely because of the rising energy level that Zai has turned itself into the most shining and quintessential part of the entire underground magical element, thus maintaining the long-lasting etheric form. To be continued.